One Sports Show. Weekday afternoons from 4 on 1395. Adelaide's 5AA.
Interactive radio. Email on air at 5AA.com.au. Peter Godfrey.
19 minutes past 5 is the time. Let's head across to New Zealand, find out what's happening in across the ditch. Selwyn Manning, livenews.co.nz. How are you, Selwyn?
Yeah, very good, Peter. A bit cold, though.
You've got a chilly blast happening. We'll get onto that shortly. Just want to quiz you on something that would be of interest. We, here in South Australia, we don't have to have compulsory safety inspection on vehicles regularly. We're one of, I think, only 2 states in Australia that don't have them, but there's been some talk this week of bringing them in. But you do have compulsory inspections regularly. What happens there? What's the...
Yeah, it's referred to as a warrant of fitness. Yeah. And going back for decades, if not the whole, for a century, New Zealand motor vehicles have required to have this warrant of fitness. It used to be every 6 months for all vehicles, but then in the early 2000s, I think it was, where it changed to new vehicles could get away with having to have it once every year.
Okay.
But most vehicles in the country are every 6 months. You've got to go up to an inspection centre or your local mechanic or auto repair place who's licensed to do these warrant of fitnesses. They'll check everything on the car right down underneath it, checking the ball joints in the steering right down to the brakes, everything. And then if you fail on one thing, your car is not allowed on the road, and you've got to have that fixed before, and another warrant of fitness check done specifically on that fault before it will get its warrant of fitness. To be caught without one, you get stung about $200 fine.
Okay.
And then on top of that, you've got a registration fee as well, which you can pay every 6 months or once a year. If you're paid once a year, it's about $280, I think it is. So all of that, and that doesn't include your insurances in New Zealand. You've got to buy those yourself on top of that.
Right. Okay. What is the inspection cost?
The inspections, it can vary a little bit, but it's usually around $50. And there's inspection centres also that specialise just in doing warrant of fitnesses, and they're dotted all over the country as well. Okay.
So every 6 months, your car might be 2 years old. You're getting it safety inspected every 6 months.
Oh no, if it's brand new car and the government's looking at extending that out, I'm not too sharp on the detail of when. But new cars, it's once every year.
Okay.
But the government is looking at changing that so that other cars that are older but not too old get to have it once a year. But generally, most vehicles in the country are getting it every 6 months.
Okay. Is there any sort of a question ever over it that somebody can take it to their mate down the road that can we can sign it off for you, no worries. Does that?
Yeah, well, there used to be a black market in warrant of fitnesses back in the 90s and even prior to that, of course. But it's with digital kind of with everything becoming digitised, it's that black market of swapping or getting dodgy warrant of fitnesses seems to have eased off.
Okay.
But each of these people that outfits that are licensed to do warrant of fitnesses are really strictly regulated and inspected. So, from my knowledge anyway, there's not a lot of that kind of backhander going to get your mate to do it kind of thing.
Okay, there we go. All right. Well, that's certainly a lot more stringent than what's been proposed for us. They're only proposing on vehicles 10 years old or over, and only a change of ownership. So
sounds like a sweetener deal.
Yeah.
You guys will go that way, and then then it'll creep in, no doubt.
Thin end of the wedge, perhaps.
Yeah, the thin end is there. Okay. That's usually how things play out, isn't it? Yeah. But the benefits of it clearly are there in road vehicle safety. And trucks and motorbikes and trailers and buses, everything has to go through this check. Push bikes don't, but everything else does. I mean, in some ways it's a blimmin' hassle. You go in there and you bowl up after 6 months, and then you get stung with some idea that's going to cost you $1,000 to have something repaired, and you think, oh goodness,
Where's that going to come from?
Yeah, where's that going to come from? It's an extra hassle, but then again, a lot of those warrant of fitness checks are exposing problems that can cause vehicles to fail when they're driving or cause accidents. So there's a benefit to it there.
Okay, yeah, maybe get in early before it becomes a major problem too,
Yeah.
which could be the other side of it. All right. Well, if you've got some snow and ice, which you may be around parts of New Zealand at the moment, you'd probably be pleased of a safe car. So you've got another blast of cold air.
That's a good segue into our weather thing. You don't want a dodgy wheel wobbling along when you're in the snow.
No, that's for sure. So what's happening? So how cold have you been getting? What's been going on?
Well, down in the South Island, they're really getting it cold. There's this polar blast that's coming up the country. It's really got the South Island in a grip. Heavy snowfalls have occurred in Southland and Otago. There were heavy snow warnings in that part of the country overnight. It's caused farmers to move their livestock to more sheltered areas where they can. And South Islanders in general have been stocking up on essentials, bread, milk, by bulk, because they know that this one's going to last a while. They don't want to get frozen into their houses and then starve to death or something like that. So yesterday evening, 20 vehicles became stuck in snow in Southland on State Highway 6. And further north in the South Island and the North Island, there have been flood warnings in evidence as well. Now, in short, Met Service says you Kiwis are in for a darn cold weekend ahead. And by the feel of it, even way up here in the north of the North Island in Auckland, it's still got a bitterly cold sting to the air when you walk outside, Peter.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I mean, the South Island it's considerably further south than even Tasmania. So yeah, and I think you're kind of almost sort of parallel to us here. So
yeah, about that. Kind of in line with Sydney, and you guys, if you put a line across, somewhere in between, or the top of the North Island's in line with Sydney. I think we're in with Melbourne. I think, and you guys. You're a bit higher, I think.
And
the New Zealand Herald, one of the stories there on the weather overnight, it says it all up, I think. It speaks to the point, and it says, no region spared as Antarctic blast sets in.
Okay,
so what it's doing is it's illustrating the point that Met Service have said no area of New Zealand is going to be spared from some sort of weather warning today and over the weekend. So we're in for a bit of a rocky ride. There's been tornadoes in the Waikato. Rain, all over the place. There's a lot of wind around in the North Island at the moment too, which was almost getting to gale force in some areas, I've noticed, and especially this morning when I was out and about. So it's winter, Peter.
Yeah, indeed. It's not just good snowfalls for those going skiing. It's some pretty serious stuff then with those conditions. Yeah. On to other serious things. Poker machines. As big an issue there as it is for us here. What's happening? Well, some changes, particularly in regard to community pokie operators.
Yeah, that's right. For those who are wanting a bit of a government politics fix on this type of thing, what happened in short was the national-led government here in New Zealand. It did a deal, the sweetener kind of deal, with the Sky City Casino in the Auckland area, where it the deal was a new convention centre for a new law change type of thing. It was obviously there to get the Sky City Casino building this new convention centre that the Prime Minister John Key thought New Zealand needed and Auckland certainly needed. And he says, we'll change the law to make it easy for you guys to have more pokie machines on your site in the casino. Now, on the back of that, we found out yesterday that Internal Affairs Minister Chris Tremaine, he said that the government's going to reform this area relating to the community-based pokies. So, in your RSA, or we call them RSA clubs, they'll get stung, and they'll have to cough up more of the money that they get through their pokie machines back to the community. Used to be 37% of that money would go to sports groups and other community organisations, and that's going to be ratcheted up initially to 40%, later to 43% and 45% over time. Now, this has got the Salvation Army seething, it's saying, and the Labour Party and the Green Party too. Now, they're not happy either, and that Sally's in particular are saying that the new laws will not address the rise in the number of people addicted to gambling, nor the social problems in the communities. So they're really annoyed by this, and politically there does seem to be an us and them type of thing going on, where the Prime Minister does a deal with the casino, and then the ones out in the community, like the RSAs or our version of your RSLs, getting stung in the pocket to reduce the overall number. Really, they're trying to get encouraged to reduce the number of pokies in the communities.
Okay, whenever pokies come up here, it's the point's always made. The state government they're addicted to the taxes that the poker machines provide. A similar issue there in New Zealand, obviously.
Well, it is. The money, like I was saying, that percentage up, it's going to increase from 37 and eventually up to 45% of the money that are coming into these outfits from pokies will have to be injected back into the community, and it's by way of a thing called the COGS committee, or it's a community organisation type of funnel, if you like, where that money goes in, and there's an appointed board. The government appoints a board that says, yep, that community organisation will get this amount, that one will get this amount, and it was designed initially to address the social problems that can be as a consequence of pokies. But it certainly has been going, like we say here, sports groups, they have been the big beneficiary of that, and many of these groups have got pokies on site themselves. So you kind of, that is an area where there's been over the time in this whole area of divvying this money out, not saying the board members, but where it goes to, that there's been some dodgy practice that's been going on, and the people that are suffering, like the families of gamblerholics or whatever you'd call them, have been suffering, and this stuff does not go to addressing that in a favourable way.
Yeah. All right. So, and many thanks for your reports this morning. We will catch you again next week.
Okay, Peter.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye.
5:30.
No time to waste. Get behind the wheel of your new Mitsubishi Triton. Now, $29,990 drive away from Agostino Mitsubishi.
5:30 on 5AA. Partly cloudy today with a top of 15. I'm Ann Stone with Adelaide's Comprehensive News. The husband of Melbourne woman Jill Maher says her killer is an unrepentantly evil man. Adrian Bailey has been sentenced to a minimum of 35 years for Ms Maher's rape and murder last September. Mr Maher has told the national broadcaster no sentence would ever be enough.
I can't think of a worse person than that man. And I wasn't expecting anything else. I wasn't expecting the judge to hand down a life without parole, simply because people had told me this wouldn't happen.
State Parliament will today consider same-sex marriage laws. It comes after two Liberal opposition MPs yesterday helped to pass a motion congratulating New Zealand on its marriage equality laws. That motion passed by just one vote. And Labor MPs will be given a conscience vote on the same-sex marriage law, and Premier Jay Weatherill says he will vote for it. Technicians have worked through the night trying to restore some services in the CBD after a major cable was severed yesterday in the redevelopment of Victoria Square. The cable supports network services to several Adelaide City Council sites and some nearby businesses. And the council's Neil Brown says motorists are being warned to expect delays this morning.
Traffic lights will continue to operate normally, but will not be able to be manually overridden.